कपूर साहब, गुड आफ्टरनून. सर, भोजन नहीं किया आज? यू आर ऑल्सो ऑन म्यूट, कपूर साहब.
मैं जो भोजन कर रहा था तभी ऑफ किया होगा कि कोई देखना नहीं क्या खा रहा.
ओके.
I think we also have Mr. Julio Ribeiro, sir, with us.
Yes,
I mean, it's a huge honor.
It's a huge honor. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Could we see you, sir? Is it possible to turn on your camera? And with Dr. Chaudhry's permission, if we could also hear you address us for a minute. Yes?
मैम जूलियो रिबेरो सर नहीं है, उनकी सेक्रेटरी मैम है, तो वो अटेंड कर रही है हमारा सेशन.
Okay. Because the name display here is his.
Yes, ma'am.
With this picture.
She deserves to be complimented as much.
Correct, sir.
Perform and the secretary performs.
Absolutely. So welcome to you, Secretary Madam. Thank you for joining us at Aadharshila Talks. So formally, let me welcome our Aadharshila speaker for the day, Dr. Harish Chaudhry, sir, one of the best speakers that I've come across and have been influenced by. There are so many things that can be mentioned as his personal traits to learn from. Most importantly, how to be so humorous, keeping a long face. So that is something which is exceptional about you, and it's not easy to learn it. I also admire how sir has his own kitty of stories full at any time on all topics, and that too from his own life. That makes me think that there are stories happening around us the whole day, but we are probably not keeping a note of it and we don't remember them. And this is another thing which we need to learn from Dr. Harish Chaudhry. So good afternoon, namaste, and welcome to all our participants, to the distinguished speaker of the day, Dr. Chaudhry. Let me formally first introduce sir to our audience. Dr. Harish Chaudhry is an associate professor with the Department of Management Studies at IIT Delhi. Sir has worked in companies like Dunlop India Limited, NIIT and RAG Systems before joining academics with the Department of Management Studies, IIT Delhi. As an outstanding teacher and learner, Dr. Chaudhry has undergone a certification course in TQM, ISO 9000, and is a certified lead assessor by RWTUV Germany. He also attended a course in ERP conducted by Bahn Systems, Holland, besides many other training programs. He has been a trainer for organizations like Godfrey Phillips, ITC Network Limited, PCL, and so on. He has served as a consultant for a number of organizations such as Modi Rubber Limited and many, many more prestigious organizations. Sir has published over 20 research papers in national and international journals and has guided 8 research scholars for their doctoral work. Sir has conducted over 100 training programs for school principals and teachers in India and abroad, and has led delegations of school principals to schools in Australia, Finland, UK, and the US. Sir has conducted numerous researches into school education, including a research on assessments effectiveness funded by IBM under their Global Faculty Award scheme. Sir has been a part of the organization team of numerous national and international conferences and presented research papers in a number of national and international conferences. It is a profound pleasure and an honor to have Sir as an Aadharshila speaker. We as teachers always talk of following different pedagogies, but always keeping in mind that whatever we teach, we always keep the values at the center. But somehow, once we start with the curriculum, we get very technical with it, and we forget to connect what we learn with the real world and the values that govern the happiness and satisfaction in this real world. So without taking any further time, I would invite Dr. Harish Chaudhry, sir, to guide us on how we can focus on values development in children in our classrooms and in our schools. Over to you, sir. Once again, thank you very much for accepting the invite. It's an honor
Thank you,
for
Jaya
us.
ma'am. I am really happy to be here, excited to be here, delighted to be here. I always prefer offline sessions, but yes, online is a good substitute and has a greater reach. I want to share with you my journey for a few minutes. I come from if I say, a very typical agrarian, lower middle class family, which my father struggled very hard to give us the best education in the country, me and my brothers. He put me into the Doon School, one of the most expensive schools of India, if I may say. And his transition was from, if I say, that same lower middle class agrarian family to becoming a government servant. And at the pinnacle of his career, he was a cabinet minister with the government of UP. From where he resigned and subsequently declared himself to be a retired politician. I never understood what is the retired politicians, because I thought only government servants, teachers, principals retire. Businessmen and politicians don't retire. And he said, I have taken sannyas from politics. Because whatever he said, we criticized the previous government regime for when we were in opposition in the Assembly and the Parliament of India. When we were given the opportunity, we could not bring in the changes. We could not give to this country the governance that we had always dreamt of and we'd asked for. As I moved on in life, JMM, thank you so much for the, if I say, very impressive introduction of Harish Chaudhry. Even I got impressed. One thing she left out is that I am now 62 years of age. And this is black hair courtesy L'Oreal or Garnier. I'm not too sure. My wife knows that, but it's definitely one of the two. And when I started my career, we were pushed for, or we needed to take up a job. And the purpose of a job was A, to be able to earn a living, B, to achieve some social status, and C, to say keep ourselves busy. It was much later in life that I realized that there was another purpose to it, and that is to attempt to make a better world. So, Doon School, IIT Kanpur, chemical engineering, management, I am Bangalore, fancy job, good salary. In my 20s, I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. And I saw myself in the 40s and 50s to be heading a large corporate organization. That was my dream. Kahin MD banenge, chief executive banenge. In the 30s, it was money, it was family. I got married in my late 20s in Mumbai. And I wanted a car and a house. And I wanted money for my son's education. And by the grace of God, and if I may say solely by the grace of God, I got it. I look back, I think it's a wrong word to say I achieved it. I got it. God gave it to me. And at the age of 40, I was teaching at IIT. I was consulting for companies like Coca-Cola, BPL, Godfrey Phillips, HCL, many government organizations, HPCL, BPCL, and so on. And it started hurting me. It hurt me that if all my education and all my contribution gets some more people to drink Coca-Cola in preference to Pepsi or buy a BPL TV in preference to a Videocon or a Sony, how does it matter? And to me, the only thing that mattered and what came to me was education. You can temporarily tide over economic crises by government fiscal policies, monetary policies, by industrialization. But a happy, sustainable society, a sustainable planet will come only and only from education. And so I moved away from consulting. And for the last 15 odd years, I've just been with school education. So the first program that we did was in Missouri on 10th of November 2009, where I wanted to understand what's happening in the school system. And I had 3 questions. I'll come to those 3 questions. I put them on the board. And the gentleman, Brother Muldavni, walked across from St. George's, and he was principal of a school in Delhi, a very fancy school, for a good 10 years before he moved on to St. George's. And he asked me a question. Or rather, he walked into the workshop and he said, I have a question. I said, sir, I have written these questions here and this is what we're debating. Because he was an elderly gentleman then compared to me. I was in my early 40s or mid 40s and he was in his 60s and he had genuine gray hair, which needs to be respected. He said, I'm senior to you. My question first. I said, yes, sir. I have put that in my presentation, that question, but that is what got me thinking. And he said, when children walk into a school at the age of 3 or 4, they come like little angels. When they leave at the age of 17 or 18, they leave like little devils. What are we doing? Subsequently, a few years later, I was at breakfast. We were having a conference in Dehradun, and I was at breakfast with a very, very senior retired school principal who headed one of the best schools of India. And he was in his 80s, and now he is in his late 80s or close to 90, a great gentleman. And he said, Harish, I'm happy that I'm dying. I said, I'm sorry, sir, I don't get that. Is there a problem? He said, yes. When my grandchildren ask me, what have you done? Why have you spoiled the earth? Why are you giving us a world torn with strifes and wars? Chemical, biological weapons. Why are the rivers not clean? Why is the air polluted? What have you done? I don't have an answer. So this is what spurred me on. And this being a perennial question, I don't have the answers. I'm going to raise some questions. But let me also get a little bit into theory and what I believe could be an approach. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
No, sir.
No. So I need to, I need to get back to.
So did you click sharing the screen?
No, I didn't.
So on your screen at the bottom, you see 3 dots just before the ending call thing.
Right. I'm going to do that.
There you would see the option of share. You may go for full screen.
Full screen.
Rather than window. If your PPT is already on the desktop, then you can just choose it, sir, from your taskbar.
No, just help me. It is when I click on these 3 dots, it's saying whiteboard, change the layout, exit full screen, apply visual effects, turn on captions. I can't hear you, Nishita. Okay, yeah, sorry, not that 3 dots, right, the one on the left. Okay, got it. Right. No, hold on. When I'm saying it is giving me this, present your entire screen, a window or a tab. Which one? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm clicking on the share, it's not working. Yes, I can. Right. Yes. Nishita, where do I open my PPT from? Just give me a minute.
So if you minimize this screen and open your PPT, yes, so now we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So this quote I picked up from the website of a major international university. Excellent education sends values result in producing world-class criminals. And got me thinking. And I was just sharing with you, this is what Brother Muldavani said to me. When children come to us at the age of 3 or 4, they come as little angels. When they leave at the age of 17 or 18, they go as little devils, is what he said. And he asked us, what are we doing? If I look at, are we an educated society? We see terrorism on the rise. We see runaway inflation. We have law and order is a mess, increased road rage, corruption. Where are we heading? So what is the purpose of education? If I ask educationists across the globe, I get these responses. 3 responses, usually in this order. Sharpening of the brain. In the Western system, we talk of the brain. In the Indian system, we talk of man, buddhi, vivek. And the process of self-development, the process of education in the Indian ethos, Indian system, is directed more at the intellect and less at the brain and minimal at the man or the mind. In the Western philosophy, we don't really differentiate much between the mind and the brain. And then there's a, if I would call it a Ofsted definition, which they cherished for a long time in UK, which many systems, education systems across the globe have taken it as a benchmark, making the child a happy, healthy, and productive citizen. The idea of citizenship is not very well defined and doesn't get into our curricula and syllabus. Some of you would recollect that we did have a value education framework developed by NCERT, but for some reason, it didn't go very far. My belief is the purpose of education is making a better world. What are values? Values are stable, long-lasting beliefs about what is important to the individual. It is evaluative standards that help us define right and wrong, good and bad. It is a higher order set of beliefs. It is general beliefs about life. I've taken this from literature, I've taken this from research papers published, I've taken it from what people write. I have a slight disagreement, a marginal disagreement. Values are eternal. They are not ephemeral. Values are beyond debate. They are not personal. So since I have taken it from theory, it would have been imprudent to put my opinion there. But my belief is, or my value is, that values are clear, crystal clear, they are universal, they are not debatable. Attitudes, on the other hand, are a cluster of beliefs, assessed feelings, and behavioral intentions towards an object or an entity. So in his book, principle-centered leadership. Stephen Covey gives an instance. There is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier frigate of the US Navy cruising along this deep sea. And the guard from the bridge sees a light ahead. And he phones back to the control room to the captain, "Sir, there seems to be a ship ahead of us." And the captain says, "Contact them and tell them to move out." So they managed to get that light, that alleged ship, on a radio contact and telephone them, "Move out." And back comes the message, "You move out." The captain is angry, is enraged. He says, "Tell them we are a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier frigate. Tell them to move out." And prompt comes back the reply, "I am a lighthouse." Values are like lighthouses. They do not move out. They will not move out, even when it's a nuclear frigate heading towards them. Dr. Eric Berne suggests in his research, values are what we live for, values are what we die for. Fortunately, unfortunately, most of our value system gets formulated by the age of 8, as per the research of Dr. Eric Berne. And he says that at the age of 4, the child decides how to live. By the age of 8, the child decides how to die. The rest of the life is only a drama being enacted. Fortunately, it can be changed. There are terminal values, a desired state of existence that we think are worth striving for. Values like honesty, integrity, beauty, equality, wisdom. There are instrumental values, which are desired modes of behavior that help us reach the objectives of terminal values. Being polite, being courageous, being logical, being self-controlled. Terminal values get embedded automatically, and they result in instrumental values as a derivative. The reverse is not necessarily true, though it perhaps has a strong correlation. Behavior, on the other hand, and we do notice behavior of an individual changes in different environments, is a function of internal influences, external influences, environment, and stimuli. So the same person could behave very differently in different environments with different stimuli. So behavior, though an output of values and attitudes, is not a very good indicator of what the values could be. A very soft-spoken person, a very decent person, may be very hard and harsh internally. And then we also use ethics and morality. Sometimes we don't distinguish between values, attitudes, ethics, morality, behaviors. But it's important to keep it different, separate. So ethics are moral principles or values that determine right or wrong. So that's a set of values. And moral development is a person's level of maturity regarding ethical decision making. You know, our intellect always knows what is right. The brain tells us what is possible. The mind tells us what to do. Moral development is superimposing the intellect on the mind and operating from the intellect, vivek. And moral intensity is the degree to which an issue demands the application of ethical principles. So I recollect in the 70s, before most of you were born, there was this disastrous, if I say unfortunate, Bangladesh war, when East Pakistan became Bangladesh. And there was a lot of unhappiness, there was a lot of disturbance, and there was a fundraising concert at Albert Hall, London, with Pandit Ravi Shankar and Elton John. Elton John on the guitar and Pandit Ravi Shankar on the sitar. And at the introduction, he said, "The hottest place in hell is reserved for those men who, in moments of moral crisis, refuse to take sides and appear to be neutral." Sorry, I haven't written it down, but to me, it's a very powerful statement. The hottest place in hell is reserved for those men who, in moments of moral crisis, refuse sides and appear to be neutral. Now, that is a moral intensity. How important is it? How important is it for us today to take sides and to make our voice heard and to see what difference we can make to the crisis that is happening all around the country, along our borders? I was with the ambassador of Uruguay day before, and he was asking me, what is your opinion on 40,000 tons of diesel that the government of India has given to Sri Lanka when we are facing a crisis of energy in our own country? Think over it. Whatever your stand is, I am clear. If somebody is in need and I can share, I will share. It is immaterial whether they're Sri Lankans or Tamilians or Keralites or Indians. What is your response to the crisis in Myanmar or Afghanistan or Pakistan or Ukraine for that matter? We need to take sides. We need to stand up for what is right. Now, to me, there are three important issues or three important questions. What are practical and pragmatic values? Is there something called practical values? Can values be taught or enhanced or inculcated? And what is the role of the school in value education? There are no clear answers. At the same time, there are, if I say, certain pointers. Can you always be truthful? Or is it that sometimes may warrant not to be truthful? Can you always be honest? Is it always 100%? Will you get trampled over? The human race has to survive. Individually, you have to survive. So maybe sometimes we have to take some shortcuts. But are you aware of it? Have you evaluated it? Do you see the pros and cons of it? Do you see the necessity of it? So I'm going to brood over in the next 10-15 minutes over some of these questions. But let's also understand how a child learns. Research suggests that 15 to 20% of the learning, even in curricular subjects, can happen inside the classroom. But 80 to 85% of the learning happens outside the classroom. We would love to believe that we can alter everything in the school. Not true. Children learn from school, but they also learn from books. If some of you recollect, I think we have teachers here, you would. In the good old days, we used to have books which people used to read. Now they surf the net. Surfing the net is not equal to reading a book. They learn from the society. A school is a reflection, is a microcosm of the society. They learn from the relatives. They learn from their parents. They learn from the media. they learn from the friends. So it would be absurd of the school to assume a responsibility of complete transformation of a child. But what is it we can do? So practical values. I have come to two, which I can practice at all moments of time. One, I shall not take that which is not mine. And two, I shall not step on anybody's toes for my personal gains. And three, I will always be well behaved. When I came to this conclusion, I asked myself, I draw a salary from the government of India for conducting my classes. If I have not taught a class well, am I entitled to my salary? If I'm late for a class, should I take a pay cut? If my children are not learning, should I be drawing my salary? And to me, it is academic corruption to walk into a classroom unprepared. If I have not put in that preparation time, and in IIT we quantify it in my institute, it is expected that a teacher will prepare for at least 2 hours for a 1-hour session. And that does not matter whether you're taking a session for the 5th time or the 10th time in your career. If I don't do that, if I use the time that I'm being paid for something which is not a part of my job, am I entitled to my salary? 2, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to earn money. I want to do well in life. I want to succeed, whatever success defines, but not at somebody else's cost. It has to be my own endeavor, my own effort, and I will get what I deserve. And 3, I never have a right to misbehave with anyone under any circumstances. I can certainly practice them at all points of time. So what's the approach that a school can take? If these are the values, the first necessary condition, essential requirement, is to have teachers as role models. You see, if you go back to Eric Bern's theorem that the value structure gets defined in a child by the age of 8, we also need to understand what are the stages of learning. Up to the age of 4 or 5, the child copies. They copy whatever they see. They see their mother cooking, they want to cook. They see you writing on a desk, they want to write. They see you fighting, they want to fight. And it was Professor Krishna Kumar, who was director of NCERT, who helped me understand we must put pleasant pictures in the child's bedroom. We must have pleasant colors on the walls in our house. We must have beautiful photographs. And we must not allow loud music and violent movies to enter our house if the children are young. They're going to copy it. From the age of 5 to about 10 or 12, the role model. They copy the behavior patterns of those people whom they like. So the task of the primary teachers, primary class teachers, is extremely difficult. And their first requirement of education is for the teacher to position herself in a manner that the child likes the teacher. And they want to become like the teacher. Or, as Rita Pierson says in a very powerful statement, children do not learn from the people they do not like. So we as teachers have to be role models. The essential condition is parental support. It takes a village to bring up a child. You cannot bring in substantive changes in the child without parental support. So we need to connect with parents. If we see our system, our education is not working on some child, we need to find out with the parents what's going wrong. Where is the discord? And there are some
Excuse me, sir.
desirable conditions. Yes, please.
So you mentioned Rita Peterson. So I also remember, I think in the same talk, she says that every child needs a champion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And can that champion
we
be the
are
teacher?
those. Yes, we have to be those champions and their cheerleaders.
And then there's some desirable conditions, learning homes. There's a lot of research to suggest that children learn better who have learning homes, who have books in their homes, even if those books are not being read. Rich experiences and exposures, I'll come to that in a minute. Positive media. Unfortunately, we have a lot of negative media around us. And empowerment of the child. So what can be an approach? Create experiences of sensitivity. So one of my dear friends, he took his daughter on a trip from Gangotri to Varanasi along the Ganga. Some parts they walked, some parts they drove across, they connected the river at different places. As it flows from the Gangotri to Devprayag to Rishikesh to Haridwar, and then through the plains to Varanasi. And that girl, her world changed. She said, what have we done? That pristine water of the Gangotri glacier becomes the mucky water of the river at Varanasi. What are we doing? She's now pursuing a course of sustainability at Harvard's University in Boston, and wants to spend her life in that. Can we create experience of sensitivity? Train in emotional intelligence. We are moving into a world of IT and computers. It would be a very sad day. It would be great if computers can think like human beings. It would be a very sad day if human beings begin to think like computers. Our distinctive feature is emotions. Share real life stories of people who gave up their lives, who stood for their values, who had the courage of conviction. Create an environment of honesty, humility, and simplicity. There's a beautiful school in Dehradun where they have what they call an honesty shop. So they have this shop, stationery and tuck and food and all that. And children can buy from there, the prices are given, and you put your money in the box and walk out. There's no billing system. It works. It works beautifully. Train in teamwork and interdependence. Let children understand how important it is for them, for each one of us, to be together. And how much of a good experience it is then to be a lonely achiever. Allow debates and disagreements and train them that a disagreement is not disrespectful. From these debates will arrive clarity. But I have a question. Why should a teacher, and if I may say sometimes or often a poorly paid teacher, be a role model? And what does it mean to be a role model anyway? But we don't have an option. The famous statement of Mahatma Gandhi, you have to be the change you want to see in the world. So, that question, let me come back to it. Why should a teacher be a role model? To me, the answer now is very simple. It wasn't so simple, it wasn't so easy when I was struggling with it. Now at the faggot of my career, the answer is very simple. At end, when you look back at your life, as this senior school principal was telling me, he's glad he's dying. When you look back and ask yourself, what have I done? It won't be the money you earned. It won't be the house you built. People will not remember you for that. In 1922, King Edward V of the British monarchy owned 1/3 of the world. In 2022, 100 years later, nobody knows him. What's the legacy you want to leave behind? That alone will stand for you. That alone is the purpose of life. It's a very satisfying moment to be a role model. And what does it mean to be a role model anyway? Live your values. Live for what you stand for. Be the change in the world you want to see in the world. So some suggestions. On the practical side for the school, what the school can do and what are the requirements. 1, get the school economics right. Very important. You cannot talk values to a hungry person. You cannot talk of a value-based education and a value system in a school and teachers as role models unless your economics are not right. You need to match your expenses and income. You need to pay good salaries. Sure, we are teachers. We still need a salary. Ensure quality of education. Values do not come at the expense of quality of education. The children must be capable of earning a good living. Involve the parents. Not inform, involve them. Involve the alumni. Engineer the environment. Work in environmental engineering. Define core values pragmatically. What is it to stand for? What is it do not stand for? What is it that you will shut the school down for? Begin from the top and lead from the front. So my request to all leaders, school leaders, academic leaders, principals is you have to walk the talk. You cannot talk unless you walk. You have to be a value-based person. Whatever you say, or as Emerson said, who you are shouts so loud in my ears that I cannot hear what you say. Recruit young, enthusiastic, energetic, passionate teachers. Believe me, it is these little girls in the 20s, early 20s, who want to make a difference. It's our environment that something sometimes goes wrong. And make staff development a priority. I use the word staff, not teachers, because values begin from the peon who stands outside the door or the security staff who stands at the gate. We are all in it together. Establish simple practices and celebrate small victories. So there was this professor friend of mine at IIT who took leave from the institute to set up a school in his village. And he came back after a few years. I was asking him what he did. And he said, I tried to teach those children cleanliness. So the first thing he did is, he said, on the birthdays, we will not have a cake. It messes up the place. We will only give 2 toffees or chocolate to all the classmates. And he said, even that I found children threw the wrappers around. So we said, we are going to ban these, we'll only give dry fruits. And 3, then we got around to, okay, children, if you can keep the classroom clean, then we'll have the cake. And he says it works. Small victories, simple practices. Can we look at our school as a temple of learning? Can we look at our job as our passion? Can we look at work as worship? Can we live the teaching? And decide never again to settle for less than what you could be. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop sharing. It is 4:15 in my watch. Can we take up some questions, clarifications from the audience?
But in such a calm and composed manner, you have driven home very deep insights. There was so much, like I think every single statement which could be put up right in front of my office here as a code to be followed. I'm sure everybody else attending the talk feels the same. I like the practical values that you spoke about. I think if we simply just follow that, many things become clear and sorted. So, friends, are there any questions, any thoughts that you would like to share and ask? Please feel free.
Namaste, ma'am. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, as you said, the teachers have to set, or they have to set an example. They have to be the role models. How impactful that it is, because we still remember our teachers who have impacted us. The teachers who I have been under, they were quite modest, quite simple, and they were loving. So this, I feel, from my teachers, from my parents, I have got that quality, and that I can percolate down in my students. I also would like to share an experience, or I rather don't want to blow my own trumpet, but just an example. I'm a Catholic guy. I'm actually teaching in Ramratan International School, Greg sir, yeah. And being a Catholic, it seems like people think, they have a perception that every Catholic function they have to have drinks, okay, drinking and everything, all that stuff. But I never drink. So there was one question to me, are being a Catholic, why can't you drink? Why don't you drink? You are a male, why don't you drink beer, PO, whatever it is? I said, I'm into a profession where if I'm asking a child not to smoke, not to drink, how am I going to do that? If I'm doing it, I have no right ever on that child or anybody to stop drinking or to stop smoking. So teachers play a very important role, I feel, and uh, values come from them. And as I said, values are not taught, but they are caught. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, Gregory. And since Jaya ma'am said that there should be some lighter moments, my class of students who were in a hostel were virtually teetotalers till we left school. Because in class 7, our chemistry teacher, Mr. Gupta, he wrote an equation on the board: alcohol plus aldehyde gives salt plus something something. And there was this naughty child who said, "Sir, what is alcohol?" So he walked over to the lab and brought a bottle of alcohol, pure ethyl alcohol, and a spoon, and gave him one spoonful. And all of us queued up. We said, "Sir, we want to have alcohol." And pure alcohol is so bitter and so terrible. For the next 4 years, we never even thought that alcohol can be consumed. It was a beautiful experiment. It worked for us.
Absolutely. In fact, the alcohol, ethyl alcohol or ethanol that we use in the lab also has very offensive smell. So I think that itself will put children off alcohol in the future. Being a chemistry teacher, this is my personal experience too.
At the same time, Gregory, I'm not so sure whether what you're saying is perfectly right. It works for you, that's beautiful. So we had Swami Tejomananji with us at IIT, and one girl asked him, "Swamiji, should we eat non-vegetarian food?" And he said, "I don't eat. It is your choice. But you can't ask the Mongolians or the Finland people to have vegetarian food because they have no vegetables." So I have great regards, since Gregory used the word Catholic, I have great regards for the Catholic tradition and the Protestant tradition and the Muslim tradition. Swami Vivekananda also writes that religion is a great unifier. It is also the greatest divider. It is the source of peace. It is the source of war. So I think there's a code of spirituality which runs across all religions, and tolerance. So to me, it's okay to have your own practices, symbols, but we must also distinguish between what Stephen Covey calls the personality ethic and the character ethic, the inside-out approach. To the extent that a child does not consume alcohol because somebody said it should not be done, is one aspect. And two, can we somehow get to the child to understand what it does and why it does? And therefore, can it come from within rather than something imposed from outside? I repeat what Emerson said. Who you are shouts so loud in my ears that I cannot hear what you say. Good, Gregory. Thank you for it.
So from this explanation, what I understand and what I also believe in is we may have our own beliefs and principles in life, but as teachers, we have to ensure that we do not try to impose our morals and principles on our children, but we have healthy discussions and debates and help them create their own moral compass, because we won't always be there with them, and we want them with changing times to also develop their own moral compass to face different situations with different responses. They should be able to choose for themselves what is right and what is wrong in any situation. Thank you, sir. Do we have any more questions and thoughts to be shared here? So I remember reading about this in a newspaper, and I've also seen a screenshot of the same, that in a certain country, a math textbook, for example, has questions like, which mentions the name of countries in the question, that our soldiers killed so many, let's say so many Indian soldiers. Initially, there were so many Indian soldiers, and after a fight of 2 hours or so, there were so many Indian soldiers left. So, how many were killed? Basically, it's a question on subtraction and, those things. I think this is such a great example of how we are impacting, here in this case, very negatively impacting the child's thought process through academics. The same could be done in our academic subjects also in a very positive way. If you helped someone with so many, let's say blankets, and then later there were more needy people and you did a few more, what is the total amount that you've donated? So it's all about how we bring in the values even in our regular subjects across the grades, depending on the concepts that they are learning. And hence one has to be very careful about it.
Good. I absolutely agree with you, Jayama. And I don't know whether this can be a debate on values, but there can be discussion on implementation. Yes. So right. I think Mr. Kapoor has just put something on the chat. Let me see. Kapoor sir would like to say that. Mr. Kapoor would like to say what you put on the chat. And
what a man's mind can create, man's character should control.
I think he's being a little withdrawn. But fundamentally, that is the theorem of self-development. Call it character, call it intellect. I prefer the word विवेक. हम क्या विवेक से अपने मन पर काबू पा सकते हैं, और वही प्रयास है. At the end of it, education is putting intellect in charge of your mind. Great. So it's 4:25. Yeah, ma'am, we can stop here. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I think we can wrap up the session here. There was a lot to take away from this talk of yours. Once again, I thank you for making us all very conscious of our biggest responsibility, and that is to be a role model. Also ensuring that we follow those principles in our lives. We don't do things simply to show, but then it is for our own personal satisfaction that we follow those morals in our lives. So we have a little video to express our gratitude to you on the screen here. at the end, I would simply just like to conclude it by saying that in our schools, in our classes, let us not just teach children the values of things, but also let them understand what is to be valued in life. With this, thanking all our participants who have been with us for the last 92 Aadharshila Talks. Dr. Chaudhry, I would like you to know that at the start of the pandemic in April 2020, we thought of starting with this platform where educators could come together. Especially, I thought of it for my school teachers, but then it was made an open platform, and we have been receiving participants from all over the country, from various schools, school leaders, school teachers, and even students and parents join us. I would like you to know that these 92 weeks that we have had, in fact more than that, the period has been longer, 2 years of period, but these 92 speakers have been extremely kind, like yourself, who have been sharing their immense wealth of wisdom with us. It is like concentrated wisdom that they have gained over so many years of practical experience of life and profession. And thank you for being such an Aadharshila. You've always been very kind and very giving.
Thank you very much.
And wish you all the best, sir. Have a happy, healthy life. And thanks to all our participants. So dear friends, see you next week, next Monday at the 93rd Aadharshila Talk at RRIS. See you then. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. I liked what you mentioned here in the comments. Because mind has unlimited creativity, would think of hundreds of thousands of things, and ultimately it's our character, our morals which help us decide what to go ahead with and what to ignore. Thank you so much for always being there. It really boosts our confidence and motivation. Thank you, sir. Thank you. See you then. Bye bye, everyone. Take care. God bless you. Regards and gratitude from Ramratna International to everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.